is the place where you go to discover, compare, and book goods for rent online. It solves pain for both the user and the business. On the business side, there is a lot of inefficiency. Currently, you cannot rent goods online. You have to call or go into the store personally. And on the consumer side, it solves a lot of issues where you can actually do it on your own schedule when it works for you. So we've developed a software where businesses can get discovered. We've categorized, subcategorized, and itemized about half of the rental industry where they can get found. And then we also have the reservation platform where they can facilitate goods for rent from their website or from the Rent Cycle platform. That's it.
Great, great. Thoughts on the pitch? Brian, what do you think?
I think it's a good idea. I mean, the challenge is if you can aggregate the demand, I have no doubt that the guys who control the items for rent will flock to you if you have critical mass. You're a great channel, but you got to get there first.
Tim, I love it. Can you rent services like people, children? Yeah, how do you prevent, when eBay first started, people were trying to sell organs, their own organs. How do you prevent that type of, it's not fraud, but it may be illegal in some jurisdictions.
All right, we're going to save the comment to the end. Save that, but that's a good question. And the monkey question, we want to get back to that.
Yes.
And have you established your OKRs at this point? Because we want to hear about your OKRs. Or RKs, whatever they are. Anyway, so, okay, Dana, what are your thoughts on the pitch? On his pitch, specifically his pitch.
I like the pitch. I thought it was clear and concise, and you were very humble, I think, in your approach. And I do have to say I'm thrilled because I like what you're doing, and I feel like normally I'm like shocked at the company that gets bagged. So I really like what you're doing. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I've seen it in other areas, sort of higher end bags and dresses and things like that, which I have friends that do.
Right. Nice. Okay, I think good pitch. Novelty. What do you guys think about the novelty of the idea? Dana kind of touched on it a little bit, but what are your thoughts, kind of going back down the line on novelty, and where does this fit in relation to other services you've seen that are out there?
Well, lots of folks have been trying to create the ultimate services marketplace. As far as the rental market, obviously textbooks are booming right now. So I don't think it's about an idea that's never been done before. I think it's about executing in a way and trying to just get that flywheel spinning. A question for you. Am I supposed to hold questions or throw one out there?
I was going to put one out there, but he's going to wait to answer.
Okay. It is really going to be, do you let the community figure out what verticals stick, and are your version of the Pez dispenser, or are you going to pick a few and really try and go deep and get those going because you picked well?
I think in terms of novelty, your idea has the brilliant trait, which is that it seems so simple, but no one's actually done it. No one's actually created a market, not for purchase like eBay or many of the others, but for rental, for anything. And so I think it's got the elegant simplicity, which is novel. Did you actually pitch renting a monkey?
No, that was a question that came out of
Oh, okay, that would have been novel. Thanks.
Yeah. And, by the way, a human is kind of a monkey, so it is relevant to previous
99.99% similar.
monkey.
That's right. That's right.
And we'll see that later at the bar in about 15 minutes. To me, the question about, not so much on novelty, and I guess we're going to drift into the next thing and get maybe Dan's thoughts on this, but the difficulty of reaching local. I think that's really, really hard. You got to develop enough people who want enough goods and enough supply and enough random categories in a region where they can be delivered easily to be able to essentially match all of that together. So I think the question becomes, how do you enter the market in a way where you actually get, not to use a completely cliche word in our business, but traction? How do you actually get something happening on the site versus a bunch of points of light all over the place? Now, I'd love your thoughts on that, on how do you get a beam versus just a bunch of little points of light.
Are you asking me that?
Yeah, I guess any thoughts on the competitive landscape, difficulty to launch, and just kind of wrapping up.
Yeah, as I said, I think that it has been, no disrespect, it isn't the most novel concept. I think it has been done in other areas, in textbooks and, like I said, sort of high-end luxury goods, certainly, because that's where, people don't want to necessarily have to buy, and it's hard to find a good place to rent. I think, but I do like the concept and I do like the simplicity of it, but it really comes down to what are the categories that work and how do you sort of get that market going. And so I'd be curious to understand, really, I mean, you are up and running, right?
Right.
So it would be interesting to see which things are working and how do you then, really sort of get to that local market. But I think it's, yeah.
Okay.
I think, Ezra, your question goes to liquidity in a particular market. And so, at NEA we have a portfolio company called Groupon, which is group purchasing for
Nobody knows what that is.
a day at the Museum of Fine Arts or whatever. And so their strategy has been to actually concentrate in localities. So you start city by city by city, and you develop a model which you can build and then replicate. And that's how you gain liquidity and a real float in your markets. Now, if you're renting everything, I mean, that's a little more difficult. So then I would agree with Dana that maybe locality plus a vertical or a group of verticals and then moving forward.
Right.
I got hung up on exactly this question about 5 years ago when all these local review sites were popping up and you had insider pages still around. And how are you going to get liquidity when you have this really tough supply-demand balancing act in a really small geography, which eliminates what's cool about the web, which is it's boundaryless, and so there's always somebody out there somewhere who wants what you have. And then Yelp, I think, figured out one really important approach, which is they made it really fun and cool, and they didn't try to constrain it, and they let people go with what they wanted to do. In that case, it was restaurants and bars and things. And so I imagine if you can figure out a way like Groupon did to make it fun and exciting and a game dynamic in there, things will start to sprout.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's good. I think be more like Yelp than PureFlix. You're probably even too young to even know those guys, but I think so I think the trick is how do you be a site that sort of takes advantage of that crowd locally versus a site that specifically has a point-to-point just transactional system, because it's a really difficult thing. Okay, people want to get to the bar. Now rebut eloquently in a minute to everything all these people just threw at you.
In interpretive dance.
In an interpretive dance.
I think RentCycle is lucky in a lot of ways because the rental industry is very old-fashioned and underserved. So they need something like this. They need a forum to be found and to facilitate reservations. I also like the rental industry because it's really well organized. I actually, this weekend, I'm going to the American Rental Association's annual event.
Those guys rock, by the way. Totally rock it.
Yeah,
where is it?
It's a different world. It's in Orlando,
It's like
Florida.
Viking hats and lampshades the entire
There's
time.
like, I think 15,000 rental business owners will be there. And I get to debut to this industry, but it's really well organized around the different categories, like tools and equipment, party and events. They all have their own categories. They all have their own groups of people. So it's a very well organized industry, so I think that's going to help a lot in terms of getting traction with the business side of things. Getting the consumers is going to be more around, I think, developing really good SEO so that RentCycle is the top result when you search for a bike in Chicago or a kayak in Seattle. I think that's going to be really important for getting the consumer side. But the business side, I feel like I'm in a good position there.
Yeah.
But what are you seeing so far? I mean, I know it's early, but what are you seeing as far as what people
From the
are actually
business
doing?
side, or?
I mean, what are people renting? What are
So there's about 200 businesses using RentCycle to rent out their stuff, and it's mostly tool and equipment, party and events, and sporting goods. Yeah. Those are the majority of them.
Yeah, cool. I would definitely say kind of look at those things. Any last comments from our esteemed panel?
I thought you did a great job, and I love the puffy vest.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. Tuxedo, I think, was last time. But all right, so thank you, RentCycle. Winner, Vator Splash. The top guy out of 200 companies. 200 companies, and here he is. So got the votes, got the judges, got you guys, got everybody. This guy wins. Awesome, Tim.